Hello, beautiful souls. Today we're going to be talking about kind of just the general astrology, I guess. Really, what's coming up here with the Mars-Uranus conjunction, some of the things we can see. It's got a wider window because it is a slower moving planet. Even Mars is starting to slow down right now, too. And then also the Mercury Retrograde. I'm going to go through that sign by sign, and the same with this, Trinity Trigger that I'm calling it, the Mars-Uranus conjunction. So I'm going to go into for each sign. You can use it for rising sign or sun sign. Rising sign is going to be more accurate, but it'll still be in a general sense accurate for your sun sign as well. We'll go through each of those to what the Mars-Uranus conjunction is going to bring in for you, and then also what the Mercury retrograde in Cancer, which we're now in, is going to bring for you per your sign. Before we do that, we'll kind of get into a little bit of just the general astrology, what it means, what the planets do, that kind of stuff. And also, we'll be touching a little bit on this full moon in Capricorn that we just had. And if you haven't checked it out on Esperanza Bense's channel, I collaborate with her every full moon. And we did about 2 hours. Well, I left a little bit early. I had some things come up. But we did a full moon in Capricorn stream, so we can go deeper on that if you check that out on her channel, Esperanza Bense Tarot. And then yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it though, and just kind of go over. Really, we'll be reiterating some of the predictions that I made. Now this won't be exactly for the 4th of July. This is kind of more of a general thing throughout, you could almost say, the whole month. Really from now until July 14th to 16th, somewhere in there, is where we can see some of the predictions come through for it with this Mars-Uranus conjunction. Very powerful placement. We've got it's the Uranus return of America. It's the Jupiter return of America, which we just actually ended, but when Mars went into Gemini, we were right at the end of the Jupiter return of America. We're in the Pluto return of America. So all these planets in the original place that they were at during the founding of America. And then also some interesting echoes with the Roswell event too in the chart there. We've got some interesting parallels. We'll get into that in the presentation though. And yeah, I mean, there's just really a lot that is getting ready to, I guess you could say, unlock or pop off for this summer that we're moving into here. And as far as the summer itself goes, I mean, it'll even be late spring where we're starting to see these things come up, of course, because summer, we're going to have that actually really begin. I mean, summer is all, I'm sorry, excuse me, summer's already began because we hit the 21st of June here. Excuse me, I'm getting my zodiac. That's how I remember the seasons, is when you get the cardinal sign. So Cancer, when we moved into Cancer season is when we had the summer begin here. But yeah, so what we have here is just a lot of things that are popping off though, and it's pretty incredible, the astrology, when you look at all of for instance, we've got when Mars and Uranus were in Cancer and conjoined, we had the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And we see that the Iran stuff right now that's going on, it doesn't really look like it's going to play out well. Now, we're about to run out of our strategic petroleum reserve. And with running out of that of course is going to bring prices of many things, not just the gasoline, up a lot. So this deals a lot with the Chiron that we have going. It just moved into Taurus, and now it's just dipping in a little bit. So what we could see, if I'm just going to guess right now based off the astrology, is prices start to go up a little bit, then we reach some type of peace deal and it retrogrades back in, and we could see it pop back off. But there will be some type of volatile event that we see in the midst of all this, whether it gets blamed on Iran, whether it's the alien stuff that they've been kind of seeding into the cultural zeitgeist. These are just kind of some of the things we can expect and formulate and just really be ready for. And in terms of the Mercury retrograde in Cancer, in a general sense, in a mundane sense, what you're looking at is some type of news story that comes out, and it's maybe even overblown, but it might even just be a big news story, but you can't trust the initial version of those of the events of the news that comes out about that. And this is going to deal with when Mercury goes direct again, moves back through shadow, and then we get more clarity on what this event is, which really is in line with the mass awakening that we're seeing. And this is the video I uploaded earlier today on the Candace Owens and Sean Ryan podcast that they did. And I mean, the numbers it's doing is incredible, totally going viral on that. And I think it is a preview. I go deeper in that video, so check it out. But I think it's very much a preview of the energy that we're starting to now move into for the summer. And all of us astrologers have been saying for the last few weeks, enjoy the last few weeks of calm and of peace, because things are going to get, you could say, wildly mutable and flammable. And you've got all of this. It's, of course, going to be a very hot summer. They're talking about, are there going to be energy restrictions? Are there going to be issues with the grid because of how hot the summer is, how all the AC is running and all that? And, we've moved away from having a lot of this water and earth with the outer planets and into having fire and air. So very combustible, very hot. And this is what us astrologers were saying really since the beginning of the year, is how hot of a summer it's going to be. And you're probably already feeling it no matter where you live. I've got friends that are in the Midwest, and they're feeling it too. We've, of course, got the Vegas heat here. I'll always take the Vegas dry heat at 110 over 80, 90 degrees in the Midwest with all that humidity. But it's really hot, really everywhere right now. Chicago, I guess that's still the Midwest, but even over in New York and stuff, people are talking about it on the East Coast, down in Florida, of course, though, very humid and notoriously hot at this time of year, but hotter than normal. So we are seeing the strain on the grid that's going on too. So that's another thing that you can play into it. And we'll get into the deeper stuff of it, of course, here, but just some of the things to expect and to be aware of. But just to cycle back here to the Iran stuff here, we've been saying as astrologers, a lot of us, I should say only like the good ones I've been seeing, that this peace deal, there is not a lasting peace deal, because the astrology that we're in right now indicates World War III. We're under the same World War II astrology. We're under the same Civil War astrology, Revolutionary War astrology. And then even with the Civil War stuff, that's bringing in monetary stuff, monetary collapse, you could call it, but more specifically currency wars. And so what are the shifting currencies? What are the new hegemonies and world powers that are going to rise and fall during this time? And this is over a multi-year period, of course, but this Trinity Trigger, I'm calling it, the Mars-Uranus conjunction, this is where we really see the beginning of events that start to accumulate and add to this shift that we're going to see in the world itself. So let's hop into it here. All right, so as I said, this is called the Trinity Trigger. Mars-Uranus conjunction meets the Mercury Retrograde. And this is going to be with how the 4th of, sorry, I was making sure my sound is good, how the 4th of July sky hits your sign too. So we'll get into that. It's going to be the second half here. We'll just kind of go over a little bit of where the sky's at, of course, and have it all on screen for you. All right, so set up 5 events, 1 window. This week, the sky stacks a rare convergence into a single detonation window, and it all fires on America's birthday. Lead with shock, read it through the fog. Okay, and so we got the trigger here, and that is that Mars we're talking about. That's where that trigger comes in, because Mars as a planet, it is going to bring that trigger point. It rules war, drive, action, ambition. It's so you can really view it as a trigger thing, and it triggers planets as it aspects them, as it crosses them in the chart itself. So Mars-Uranus exact at 4 degrees Gemini, the sudden shock, the ignition point. Okay, and then the overlay we have, this is going to be Mercury retrograde in Cancer. And so every story gets garbled and reversed. And this is a common theme with Mercury retrograde in Cancer anyway. You saw this during Mercury retrograde in Pisces, where we had all of this stuff going on with Iran, with Operation Epic Fury, I believe it was, or I think it was Epic Fury, because they're different. The one from last year versus the one from this year are different names. but I think it is Operation Epic Fury. And with that, there were all these lies that came out about it. I specifically think about when they were in Iran there and they set up the airfield, like right outside the border, right in Iran, right in there, and totally got blasted to smithereens. Our C-130s destroyed. We said that it was on the way out. Then the fighter pilot got downed, and he was in the mountains, and apparently made this long trek that was 200 miles or something like that, like an insanely long trek. I remember it being that. Through the mountains, and was able to get picked up, and nothing with the story added up. We haven't seen this guy. Usually they present these people front and center, but we didn't even get to see who this guy was that we rescued. And that's kind of a huge part of the propaganda, is being able to present that person and be like, oh, we did it, oh my goodness. And they do this prior when they get people out of places, out of war zones, but they didn't do it with this guy. So something with the story is definitely not adding up. And of course, whenever you're in Cancer territory in a mundane sense, you're dealing with the America's chart, because America's a Cancerian nation. So there's a lot. So what is the news that's going to be around America right now, where the story is going to get garbled, reversed, etc.? There currently is the SAVE Act they're trying to pass right now, I think. And I don't know what the Clarity Act too. I think it's also the Clarity Act. So it could be something around that too, because we do have this theme, which is going to be over a longer period, of Pluto and Aquarius, that deals with, the founding documents of America. Like I said, we're in the Pluto return. So this deals with founding documents, but also just the law in general around rights, human rights, and all that kind of stuff. So not saying that's necessarily in play now, although you could make the argument, especially with the SAVE Act, depending on who you ask, you could make that argument. But it seems that the things that are being pushed through right now, or have been pushed through quite recently, are dealing with violations of our liberty as Americans, as the people, because Aquarius is the people, it's the collective, all that. So that's really what we need to look at here. And then you need to add that clarity, understanding that Mercury is retrograde in Cancer, in the home sign of America. And then so with Jupiter here, that's going to be the amplifier. Jupiter enters Leo, so it just entered Leo a few days ago. And then Venus too. Whatever fires gets broadcast loud. And so that's why it seems like it's going to be a bigger event that really gets televised a lot. We know we just had that earthquake that happened in California. So that's something that we could be looking at, even an even bigger earthquake. People are talking about. It's very hard to predict earthquakes by seismologists and all that. So, but that is just a possibility that we're talking about here. So there's that. But yeah, essentially it's going to amplify. And this is in the Leo energy. We went really deep on this Jupiter and Leo in my Candace Owens video here, where we talk about the summer energy that we're moving into, and summer astrology that we're moving into here. But with Jupiter being in Leo, and then the South Node on the 26th of this month also moving into Leo, that is the energy that we're moving away from, but also the energy that we clutch on to. That makes us feel safe, that gives us comfort, all of that. So this is a type of thing we can see as, are we going to cling harder to leaders because of some event that happens? Or is there going to be an event around a world leader that you say gets assassinated or something like that? Or their health takes a turn? We're in that window now of my death of the king energy kind of stuff. So something going to happen with Trump. And then this kind of, as we can cycle this back over into that Pluto and Aquarius vibe that I was talking about, because if something were to happen to Trump and J.D. Vance took over, well, J.D. Vance is I say this, I'm a broken record now, but he's a creation of Peter Thiel. So, with Peter Thiel, Palantir, all of that stuff. Well, Palantir came in during the whole Doge thing that happened with Elon Musk in our government, and Palantir collected and consolidated all of our information. And this ties in with the data centers, the control grid that's coming in, the Golden Dome, which will be ready and operational a few days before the election of 2028. So all of these things are kind of consolidating, coming together, and this Leo energy, this amplified Leo energy we're moving into, this is going to really end. This is at opposition with that Pluto and Aquarius as well. So all this Leo energy that we're moving into is really telling in terms of how we're going to be confronted with this, the rulers versus the people type of energy. And we're really getting a feel for that with that interview. I did the breakdown on an analysis with Candace Owens and Sean Ryan. And then the framing that we have here, this is the full moon in Capricorn. And so this was, of course, part of my predictions on Esperanza Bense's channel. But full moon in Capricorn, institutions and structures lit up first. And this was really the prediction that I made, was that we have we finally are going to see within the next couple of weeks here a crack in the institution, or something that really, as it's saying, lights up the institutions. There's going to be some type of institution that's confronted and can't handle what it is, or we will essentially see the fallacy around a certain institution when you have all these things running in the background, because that full moon energy is the releasing energy right there. And so what around institutions is going to need to be released. And then in our personal lives, that hits a little bit different, though. It's going to be more around your 10th house Capricornian type of stuff you've got going on in your chart. Like what is that? It can be responsibilities, structures, that kind of thing in your life. What around there needs to be released, because we have that Mercury retrograde in Cancer, which is the oppositional axis there. And that's going to be dealing more with the home and the intuition and how your emotional state, those kind of things. So that's kind of a big thing, and you may already be feeling that come on, because we've already moved through that astrology. But of course, the full moon is going to still be in the backdrop, the full moon energy, until we of course reach the next moon cycle. And then with the threshold nodes at 0 degrees, okay, we got the north and south node at 0 degree Pisces and 0 degree Virgo there. So they're the karmic axis on a knife's edge, shifting into Leo. And like I said, that's going to be on the 26th, where we see that shift into the Leo Aquarius axis there. And for anyone who doesn't know about the nodes, this is also going to be where the eclipses happen. So check that area of your chart. What house is that in? You know, and you'll be able to see when I pull up the charts here what house that's in and what's going on. And then you can see kind of what area of your life is going to be lit up through all this Leo and Aquarius energy, with the node shifting in, but then also with the whole Jupiter in there, with Pluto in there, going to be aspecting Jupiter, all these things. So we'll get into all of that. And you'll be able to really understand how this is going to hit you, because the eclipses will also be there too. So just to keep that in mind. So Mars conjunct Uranus, we talked about this a little bit, but we'll just go over what's here. So we've got it exact at 11 p.m. Pacific time tonight. So it can be, depending on where you're at, into tomorrow, July 4th, if you're on the East Coast, say, or even in the Midwest. You're going to have that be on the East Coast. And technically even Mountain Time Zone. But yeah, you're going to have that be on July 4th, excuse me. But Mars, action, force, heat, the match, Uranus, shock, rupture, revelation, the unexpected. When they perfect the same degree, you get the astrology of the sudden, breakthroughs, accidents, reversals, and the thing nobody saw coming. And so breakthrough in terms of the wall that finally cracks. This can also be invention. This can be a sudden breakthrough, a revolutionary breakthrough in your own personal life. Liberation, the leap. And this is how we can see this perhaps happen in the realm of AI or quantum computing too. That's something that they brought up. So maybe that's an announcement that could be coming from the Trump administration. They kind of had this whole Q day, which was a bit on the nose too, because of the whole Q movement, or QAnon, as more people would know it as, but there is a differentiation between Q and QAnon, of course. However, I will say, now that we have the Epstein files, we know that he created that whole movement, him and Steve Bannon, so that's important to know. Rupture, the sudden break. What was stable snaps without warning. And then revelation, Hidden things surface fast. The truth arrives like lightning. And that's the thing with Uranus is it's got this very electric nature, rules lightning, all that. So there's a very electric nature to it. And then when you're bringing in this violent planet, this action force heat planet, or a match planet, combining those energies together, especially in Gemini, very mutable. This is something around communication, around commerce, around all of these Gemini things. Like this can even be travel and mass transit, because mass transit is really dealing more with Uranus, because Uranus is the octave up from Mercury, which is the ruler of Gemini. And so where you've got your daily commute for Gemini or for Mercury, then it's going to be like mass commuting or like mass transit. That's going to be under Uranus. So that's important to note, but they're all coming together. So all of it is in play because this is in Gemini. All right. And then it's just like the anatomy of the type of like the shocks that come in through Uranus. Mars-Uranus is the fastest, most volatile pairing in the sky. The accident and breakthrough signature. When it perfects, it tends to fingerprint the same handful of domains it's in. And so, electricity and networks. Uranus rules the grid, the current, the wired world. Mars ignites it. In Gemini, that's data, signals, and the internet itself, the infrastructure lane. The sky and aerospace. Uranus governs aviation, the airborne, the anomalous overhead. And this is the disclosure signature, the unexplained arriving without warning. And you got sudden reversals, the out-of-nowhere event. Neptune's near-exact sextile adds a fog of deception, and Mercury Retrograde guarantees the first story won't survive the week. And this is what we brought up earlier because of that Mercury Retrograde. It's going to be very difficult with whatever stories come out around all of this to really trust in it being the final version of the story or the real version of the story, just like with Mercury retrograde in Pisces, which is arguably the only place that's like the worst place for it to be, is Mercury retrograde in Pisces right there, worst placement, and you saw that. So you're going to get kind of a theme of that. I would also say that there will be a revisitation of the lies that were seeded and planted during Mercury retrograde in Pisces now that we're in Mercury retrograde in Cancer. Money in motion. The Uranus and Gemini monetary cycle runs underneath. Shocks and system transitions and how money itself works. Volatility, not a verdict. And so this is where we can see stuff in the markets too. Now, I wouldn't say like a complete and total market crash. That's kind of something more towards October-ish, where we're looking at major market stuff. But this will give you that first sign of it, especially when you're having Chiron and Taurus right now. Because Taurus is going to deal with your finance, with your resource, all that kind of stuff, with these material things. And so you really kind of get that play on it where you can have these issues that come up. And it's more of a preview that we get because we're going to have the retrograde of Chiron. And then it's going to move back in around, I don't know if I'd say quite the middle of next year, but definitely a few months in next year. So this is really just where we get this preview for the things that are coming next year, the energy we're going to fully move into, and then we'll be in the thick of it, in the heat of it, moving forward full speed by 2028. Mars-Uranus marks where the sudden tends to strike, a signature, not a script. And then we've got the wedge here, okay? And this is kind of why it's called the Trinity Trigger too. Okay, so the conjunction isn't alone. It's wired straight into the outer planets. 3 near exact aspects turn a 2-day spark into a story that runs all summer. And so we've got Mars. And notice when it says Mars here, this is also talking about Uranus because they're like right on top of each other. But Mars trine Pluto. So Mars, Uranus trine Pluto. Force meets deep power, buried pressure, the underground, obsession, and control surge to the surface. Mars sextile Neptune, near exact, only off by like 1 minute, you know, because it's not even a full degree. It's off, so it's like a minute that it's off. But action meets the unseen, dreams, deception, spiritual charge, and the disclosure lane too. And you've got all this disclosure stuff with the aliens running behind the scene. Now, they've had all this time. I'm not over here like, they're going to finally release the aliens and it's going to be all good. No, it'll be something that's used to control us. They're doing it to obfuscate from the Epstein files, from the fact that we're essentially being ruled over by pedophiles who eat children. This is all in the files. So I'm not even saying anything crazy. But this is stuff, it's funny because this is stuff that we knew about. A lot of us already knew about. And now that it's in writing and it's there officially from government sources, it's like, come on. What other kind of cover are we going to do at this point for it? And so as people become more aware of this, this is where you see a lot of change that's going to be coming through. But really what we're looking at with this Mars-Uranus conjunction is it's the trigger point for that change. And then we get another Mars-Uranus conjunction in 2028, and that's where we see that really it's the bigger one. But with this one, it is the first one. So we're going to definitely see what we have in store for us for the next few years and going through until the end of this year, for sure. Pluto sextile Neptune. The rare generational undertone. Two outer planets in quiet structural harmony beneath it all. And so this is where we get that Trinity Trigger, where Mars comes in to trigger these planets of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto that are all making a mini grand trine. All right, and so for Mercury retrograde in Cancer here, Mercury is the mind, messages, tech, travel, contracts, and it reverses through Cancer, the sign of the home, family, memory, feeling. Everything that this Trinity trigger detonates gets filtered through crossed wires and stories that run backward. The sun sits here too. The heart of the week is emotional and personal. So yes, emotional and personal on this personal level. And then we will even see it in terms of the identity of the nation with what we see come through here. So the official version changes as we discuss. What's announced now gets walked back later. Watch the story reverse. Reread, back up, don't sign. Contracts, launches, the big sends wait until the 23rd if they can. So that's another really important thing is these new commitments, new contracts you can find yourself in. Be very careful during a Mercury retrograde of getting into them, because it may be something that you may be not okay with the terms on once you get out of it and get some clarity. Is it coming from an emotional sense that you're doing these things, or a sense of needing to feel security? That's what's really important. The past comes knocking. Old messages, old people, old feelings return for a second pass. And this is another thing with Mercury retrograde that you have, is that people from the past come back up in your life. They reach back out to you, that kind of stuff. And so the important thing with that is, because of the miscommunications, understand, and we'll get into this on a chart by chart basis, of course, but you want to understand, you know, how are you going to deal with this? And like, do you maybe want to give it some time before you respond, so that you have actual clarity and aren't being too emotional about these things? But it's that fine line and that balance, because a big part of this Mercury retrograde is being more in tune with your emotions and not over intellectualizing everything. So and then the backdrop. So this is just the backdrop to the trigger. We already went over this, but we'll give this specifics here with the full moon in Capricorn, sun 8 degrees Cancer, opposite moon 8 degrees Capricorn. So if you have anything from what would that be, like 13 degrees to about like 3 degrees in any of the cardinal signs, you're really going to want to watch out for how this full moon is hitting you, and probably already hit you, but still. And then just even heavy placements in any of these signs, because as other stuff, as essentially like you're dealing with a square here in your chart. So but yeah, in terms of the general stuff, governments, institutions, and structures light up in the days right before the shock. The establishment is fully illuminated first. And this is where you kind of see this walking back of the Trump administration, when they're trying to pretend like, oh, hey, Israel's kind of crazy. Like, we don't really, and they're walking back all this stuff. And that's really the thing that, I mean, you kind of made your bet already in terms of this administration. So, but how are we going to see that reflect is the really important part. Jupiter enters Leo. With Venus already at 24 degrees Leo, the sky's great amplifier crosses into the sign of spectacle and spotlight. Whatever the trigger fires gets broadcast loud and gilded gold. And yeah, important to remember that Leo, when you're getting into the elements and all that, that's going to be gold. That is representing Leo. So this is why it has even a more significant tie-in with Trump and with Vance because they're both Leo rising. And Trump is a 29-degree Leo rising, so a very strong Leo rising. And what is Trump known for? He's known for gold, for making everything gold. So you have that right there. But yeah, it is the amplifier of this energy. And then there's some type of spectacle and spotlight that we're going to see. I'm kind of leaning more towards this being something around the World Cup and not the 4th of July, but both possibilities do exist there. Nodes at the 0-degree threshold. The south node sits at the very last degree of Virgo, regressing towards Leo and crossing over in late July. The karmic axis is balanced on a knife's edge. And that's, as we said earlier, just kind of reiterating this backdrop energy that we have, where these karmic axes are about to flip over. And so you're at these powerful degrees of the first degree, 0 degrees, and then going into the anaretic degree, which is going to be 29 degrees. That's on the 26th of July here. But moving into that 29 degrees, that's going to be also a big thing right there. And where are these sitting in your chart? This, probably it's not going to be separated house by house unless you're using whole sign. I don't really use whole sign unless I'm doing astrology in my head or something. But look at what house or maybe houses this falls in your chart. And of course, we'll have all these displayed. All right, and then, so this is just kind of where we've got on July 4th, everything in the sky, how it's all going to be laid out. So you've got you got right here the 4 degrees Gemini Uranus and 4 degrees Gemini Mars. That's the trigger. Then you got that Cancer, and I'll actually do it right. That's the trigger. Okay, and then you've got the Mercury Retrograde in Cancer there. And then we've also got Pluto retrograde over here too, and that is opposing Jupiter. It's still kind of a looser orb, but it's there, especially with Jupiter. It's already in the orb of influence with Jupiter because Jupiter is a huge planet, brings you into that orb of influence. So you got that going on. But yeah, just a general look here at everything. And then I know I guess I was like circling, so I'm kind of covering it up here with my screen, but I could move it over a little bit. Let's move myself up here. Yeah, so you got that down there, right there. And then so that's the conjunction, the trigger. Then you've got that Mercury retrograde right there. And of course, you got the sun in Cancer as well. And this will be the solar return of America's birthday. So you got that going on. And yeah, just kind of general idea of where everything's at in the chart. There's your Neptune right there. And that's, of course, giving you the sextile over here to Uranus and Mars, that conjunction. Then Mars and Uranus trining up here to Pluto. And then the sextile again. So it makes that little type of triangle right there, which is what we would call a mini grand trine. Or at least what I call it. Okay, we'll move back down here. And let's see. We might just go up into that corner for the whole thing here. We'll see here. But yes, the mundane layer or the predictive astrology layer, the astrology for the general collective, that's mundane astrology. Why July 4th? The trigger falls on America's solar return inside its Pluto return window, and it echoes one of the strangest summers on record, which is this Roswell echo. The last time Mars and Uranus met in Gemini was August 1947, the Roswell summer. 79 years later, they perfect the meeting again at 4 degrees Gemini. On his frame in the 47, two were still, and that's the thing I was about to bring up too, is they were still 20 degrees apart over the Roswell event itself. Okay, but what the whole echo is still there. So what's new now, like around that event, around what was seeded during that event, same time 1 year in a cycle later. And then another thing that's interesting is we have Pluto on the oppositional axis of where it was at during the Roswell event. It was in Leo back then. Now it's in Aquarius. So you got that. You also have a Mercury retrograde in Cancer. That was happening during the Roswell event, and we are now in a Mercury retrograde in Cancer. So summer of disclosure lane, Neptune and Aries wired to Mars, the Roswell cycle, and a foggy Mercury retrograde. The astrology of revelation arriving through a story that keeps changing. And so this is really where you kind of lean to, is like, okay, are they going to finally drop whatever this thing is? that they've been getting ready to drop in terms of disclosure. But here you go. The thing that I'm covering right there is Mars, Uranus, and Gemini. So we already know that. Sun in Cancer, 12 degrees then, 13 degrees now. And then Mercury retrograde in Cancer, like 26 degrees then, 25 degrees now. And then that'll be, yeah. So, I mean, like very, very exact. So there's something, and then Pluto flips the axis, Leo, then Aquarius now. So we went over all this, but look at the similarities, on these charts right here. Back from 1947, Mars and Uranus right in there. And then you got Mars and Uranus now, right in Gemini, for both of them. And then right here, you got the Sun and Mercury right in there, Sun, Mercury, and then both Mercuries retrograde as well, very close in the degrees that we're seeing. And for Mercury, that's especially astonishing. The Sun, you're going to get that, of course, on the same day, July 4th, every time, but a bit more astonishing to have that closeness there with Mercury 1 degree apart. And then right here, you've got Pluto up here, of course, in Aquarius. That's where we're presently at. And then down here in Leo in the Roswell chart. So definitely something around that's coming up, that we'll see come up. It's already been coming up, but we're going to see it get, and there's that the Jupiter energy in Leo get amplified. We'll see it be amplified. 84-year return. Uranus takes 84 years to circle the zodiac, so every time it re-enters Gemini, it stress tests what the last passage built. America was born under one of these. Here's the lineage, and this is where you get these advances in technology too. Okay, so 1774 to 1781, that's the revolution. A nation founded, Uranus and Gemini over the declaration itself. And then you have the Civil War was the next time it came in. The Union torn and remade. The country's contradictions erupt. Okay? And then we also have that Neptune in Aries. That's coming back from the Civil War as well. It's very important to know. So what is going on around our union right now, around our states, around the country itself, that will really mess with the national identity? That's something that comes up. And mind you, we're just looking at the trigger point. I'm not saying these things are coming up like immediately in the next few months, but there will be something that comes up that leads to it, and it will be amplified. It will be loud. Okay. And then World War II and Roswell, and that's the thing. So World War II, you got that 1941, 1949, but then you got the Roswell event itself. And then the modern world order is built. This is the UN, Bretton Woods, computing, Roswell. So all these things are under this stress test that's coming back in around what are these technologies that we're going to keep, what is going to become archaic and redundant. And then, of course, Bretton Woods is made even more so important because of the whole currency war monetary thing that's coming in. And then with 2025 to 2033 here is the cycle that we're in now. Of course, it tapped in last year, Uranus and Gemini, and then it retrograded up, and now we're back in fully until, of course, 2033. So this is the return. Everything from the last passage comes up for review. So that's going to be the continental currency, the greenbacks, like all of these things are going to come back. I mean, not that we're necessarily using that, but there's that echo of that. But Bretton Woods for sure. And Bretton Woods, for anyone knows, just like essentially as a short term, it's our modern monetary system. Okay, essentially. But you've got that coming up. And then this is all with the Mars-Uranus conjunction here. But I did pull a tarot pull for this. I had my AI do it the best that it could. It like literally reversed the Page of Swords though, because it was reversed. I got that. But these are the cards I pulled up around the Capricorn Full Moon. These were just personal cards I pulled for myself, but very much applied to the collective. I thought it was so on point. So this is what I got for the full moon here. So Page of Swords reversed. Scattered mind, hasty words, a message you can't quite trust, the messenger flipped. And so this is really where that Mercury retrograde comes in. I thought that was just like perfect with the Page of Swords. And then this is also a very mental energy too. We're dealing with a lot of this mental energy with the Gemini we're dealing with the Mercury retrograde in Cancer too. On top of that, because Cancer itself is a watery energy. It's an emotional energy. But when you got Mercury retrograde in Cancer in that, it brings in a different vibe to the sun being in there in this backdrop. Seven of Swords, stealth and strategy, someone slipping out the back. What's hidden starts to surface. Okay. And that's the thing. And that really just ties again into Mercury retrograde in Cancer. But then also what we're going to see with the Mars and Uranus and all that stuff. You got the Pluto and Aquarius making these aspects, the aspect especially to this Trinity Trigger that runs in the background, because it's a slower moving planet, but you just have that kind of running in the background. So very important to know. Then the Hermit. The answer isn't in the noise. Pull back, raise your own lantern, and discern what's real. So all the things that we've went over already with just the astrology, well, the tarot card pull I had also indicated these things too. So important to note on that. Two swords in the Hermit, an air dominant pole landing right as Mercury retrograde stations. Don't chase the loud signals, go inward and find what's true. And then with the Hermit too, I remember reading that it's like a Virgo energy, so that's even more mercurial energy that comes into it with the Hermit. So that's just also kind of important to. I would kind of think, if I was guessing, that the Hermit's maybe more like an Aquarian energy, but this is of course why I need to get deeper into my tarot studies of each individual card and like go very deep on each card and all that. But that's another aspect that you can add. So. And then we're going to get into these signs here, okay, and how these things are going to hit you based on your sign. So you've got the rising sign first, okay, and like that's the thing. If you don't have your rising sign, you can use your sun sign for this. That's just called it's literally a horoscope. You know, that's how they calculate horoscopes and everything. And our rising sign is going to be more accurate, but you can use both or even read both. That's what I typically do. When I would listen to astrologers that were teaching me on everything, I would just read both. Like they would do rising / sun sign readings, and this is what we're doing right now. And you could do for your sun sign and for your rising sign. Take both of them and kind of mesh them together. You can do that as well, but that's going to be rising going to be based on your birth time. But yeah, then your sun, it's a bit more general. But the houses are going to be highlighted here. We've got the Mars-Uranus conjunction, and that's going to be in Gemini, and the Mercury retrograde, and that's in Cancer. So those will be highlighted on each of these charts here, and you'll be able to really see it. All right, so for Aries rising, you've got Mars-Uranus conjunction going on in your 3rd house, Mercury retrograde in your 4th house. And so for the trigger here, when I refer to the trigger, that's the Mars-Uranus conjunction. For the trigger, a message, poster, idea detonates. The trigger fires in your 3rd, communication, siblings, short trips, the local scene. Sudden news lands, your mind races. Something you say or send goes off like a spark. Breakthrough in how you think and speak. Watch the wheel and the words. And so that's really the thing, though, with this trigger. I think it's going to hit Aries in such a significant way. And also needing to realize where to kind of, there's been this theme for Aries going on where do I kind of pull back and not go hard, go all out in all these things, because you've got Saturn that's moving through your 1st house. It's kind of learning where to put I don't want to say limitations, that's not the right word, boundaries. where do you kind of set both boundaries for yourself, but then boundaries in the way you go about things, and to where have you been delusional about these things. This has been a theme over the years, so this is really going to hit on that. There's going to be this trigger point where you get to test what you've done with all that. And then we're going to move myself up to here, by the way, so we're not in the way of all this. And then you're going to have the reversal. The reversal is dealing with the Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde pulls back to your 4th, okay? Home and family comms reverse. Old roots resurface. A living situation call goes under review. Renegotiate the home front. Don't sign the lease yet. So very important too. And that's what I love about an Aries chart. Very straightforward. Very direct. No pun intended. I like to always say with one of those charts is how direct it is, because the houses are going to be the same essentially as the sign that it's in. So now there's an amplification that comes in with that too, and that's why you can get that intensity that you get from Aries in general, is because they're dealing with twice the energy, in my opinion, in each house and in each sign. And Jupiter and Venus in your 5th. This is good though, because you have fortune and charm flowing through your creativity, romance, kids, play, that kind of stuff. And that's your green light this month too. So you really are working with good energy. It's more about what have you kind of overcome in the first half of this year, and that's going to be tested in what you do here. All right, and then we've got the Taurus here. That's my sign here, okay? So Mars-Uranus in your second, and this is my sun sign specifically. Mars-Uranus in your second, Mercury retrograde in your third. And so this trigger hits your money house. Sudden income moves, unexpected expense or windfall, and a values earthquake. So this can be, I mean, it can be good or bad for money. It's something unexpected coming in. With the money though, like typically when you're looking at these kind of placements, it can be something that's an unexpected expense, but it really is going to depend on your chart, of course, but do expect something around money to come up and to be a trigger point very soon here. And then another thing is financial impulsivity. That's a risk that you really want. Like it says here, you don't want to YOLO your savings on the July 4th adrenaline, because there is that adrenaline running behind the scenes here. A shock to what you earn or what you value. So very important to remember that, especially as we have Chiron in Taurus right now too, which is going to be in your first house. So you don't want to, you want to minimize a lot of that and not have there. And this could be even that Chiron Taurus moment for you as it moves into your first house, is that it could be some type of, because of this coming in, some type of wound around the self and how you make money, all that, or go about making money, the resources that you have available to you. There could be a wound that comes in as a little bit of a sneak peek through this trigger point. And then with Mercury retrograde here, it's going in your third house. So this is really that classic garbling, you know, or like miscommunication, I guess. Texts misfire, tech glitches, sibling neighbor mix-ups, like mix-ups with your sibling communication, neighbor communication, or even just mix up in general with them without it being a communication thing, because this is ruling the third house. But back up your data and reread before you see it. Yeah, so that's the thing. Back up like your data in terms of the technology stuff, but then like reread things before you're sending them. Make sure it's coming across properly. Make sure you're not acting on impulse. Jupiter, Venus in your fourth, though, it's blessing the home and the family. It's blessing, it's also very good for your internal stuff going on. It's a great time to reflect and touch base on your emotional complex and your just internal systems and everything like that. And then also a good time to beautify the space in your home, that kind of stuff. Really put in. I found myself doing that too, and I'll probably be throwing up some things I pulled out of storage. Some cool tapestries I'm going to put behind me and everything. But this is like where that's hitting me. All right, and for Gemini, this is a fun one with Gemini. Gemini is definitely with Uranus being in your first house. I mean, there's been a lot going on in the world of Geminis right now. But this is your reset. The trigger lands on your first house, okay? Body, identity, the whole self. You're electrified, restless in your own skin, pulled towards a new look and sudden boldness. And this can be like probably a new look personally, but depending on how you're looking at this, whether it's sun or rising, this could also be a new look towards a certain area of your life, okay? And then you're a lightning rod this week. Channel the current on purpose, or it channels you. And that's the thing. I would say you don't want to be just sitting around kind of doing nothing with all this energy you're going to be channeling. You want to be putting that into something as a Gemini sun or rising sign, okay? The reversal. Mercury retrograde in your second. Rethink money and self-worth. Hold off on big purchases. An old payment or income thread resurfaces too. So it's interesting. You still get the money theme going on because it is these two adjacent zodiac signs we're dealing with and the way that this moves per sign. So you're still actually doing, and it's more of just rethinking money, rethinking self-worth, rethinking a lot of these second house Tauresian things that you're going to be addressing here. And this is where that's going to really hit you in the Chiron Aries too, especially being in your 12th house. That's going to be kind of something that comes out of nowhere. I'm not even going to say it's like a Uranian coming out of nowhere where it's sudden or shocking, but it kind of just creeps up on you, or it's been hidden for a long time. So there's that kind of thing going on with it. And there's a closing out too, but it won't be a full closing out. You'll see the way forward and how to close out these things around your rethinking of money and self-worth going forward into next year. And then, of course, this is going to be with Chiron and Taurus. This is a multi-year thing, but you at least get the ball rolling now that we've healed all this Aries stuff with Chiron and Aries. And we're going to do that last pass over into it towards the end of this year. And then Jupiter and Venus in your third, it gilds your words. So it's like a great time for content pitching, local wins, these kind of things. It's a very local house with the third house and all that. But yeah, with it being in the third, like your words are going to be, you're a Gemini, your words are already a lot more powerful than most people's, but there is going to be something very Leo, like you could even say, to your words because of the Jupiter being in Leo. Just and then of course Venus too, but Jupiter being there in itself, it's going to amplify, it's going to create a lot more value to your words. So very, very oh, hey, what's up, Esperanza? Speaking of Gemini, good to see you, Esperanza. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I was just saying earlier, Esperanza, with these, I mean, I always like to do, because you can use it for rising or sun. I mean, I always just pick up my sun sign and I'll pick up my rising sign from these spreads. So, but yeah, and then really in terms of what's been going on in your 11th house too, it adds to this, like this kind of whether it's refining your network, figuring out where this Neptunian energy is within the networks. This is all stuff that's been going on earlier in the year. We're talking about Saturn and Neptune here. And as it's separated out, there's just this refinement and new boundaries around that kind of stuff, new game plan around that. And so it's going to add to the power that you have as a Gemini during this time. All right, and then Cancer. It's funny, of course, speaking of the devil, Esperanza, because you are a Cancer rising. So you get yours back to back. But yeah, you got Mars-Uranus going on in your 12th house here, and then Mercury retrograde in your first. Okay, so for this, the trigger moment, which of course is this Mars-Uranus, it's going to be firing in the hidden house. So pressure builds behind the scenes, okay? Buried anger, disrupted sleep, private rupture, self-undoing, that kind of stuff. Those are the things to be really careful about, obviously. And really just guarding against the burnout is the big thing. What breaks here breaks quietly, okay? And so this is also really tied in. I haven't even read the bottom part here, whatever I had put in, but I'm guessing it'll be pretty similar to what I'm saying here because of the next thing going on in your first house, which is that Mercury retrograde in Cancer. And that's really dealing with, okay, where am I doing too much of, whether it's my daily work, where am I doing too much of this daily work, putting all my focus there or stuff, and like, how do I need to touch base with myself internally, with my emotional complex, with my like emotional, I guess you could say, even availability, with my emotions in general, touching base with that and making sure. And that's where it comes in and has this interesting play out of the 12th house, and making sure you are guarding against that burnout, against the sudden shock, against sleep being disrupted, these kind of things, or this buildup that comes in. Oh, hey, good to see you, Mom. And then, so really, Mercury retrograde, I'm reading the reversal now. Mercury retrograde sits in your first house with the sun. A retrograde on your rising. You're rethinking who you are. Self-image and signals get mixed. Slow down how you present yourself. And that's another thing too. Now, it was different when we were looking at, for the Gemini rising particularly, but remember I said that it's going to be these two houses that get aspected. So for the Cancer risings here, it's kind of the same thing here, where there's this thing coming up around the self-image, around how you present yourself, these kind of things. But then there is like this incredible thing with money, and I would say in a much better way than when we were looking at the Taurus chart, where because that's really more about figuring out and reevaluating stuff around money, resources, that kind of stuff. But Jupiter and Venus, these are going to be in your second house. So it's like literally an open lane that comes through around both your self-worth and income because of all the stuff that you're evaluating and moving through, going through right now. So very, very I really am liking the Cancer one and the Gemini one. These are great, especially if you've done the work around the Saturn-Neptune conjunction earlier this year as we get that separation here and you really see clearly what that brought forward. Now you're getting this new lane, this Leo lane through which you can make good money essentially, but also just bring new things in and really fortify and gild your second house. All right, Leo. This will be fun, right? 12th and 11th house. That can be good, though, but definitely some things coming out of nowhere. The trigger shakes your 11th. Friends, networks, groups, audiences. An alliance forms or breaks overnight. An online community jolts. Your people become the story. Sudden movement in your circle. And this is where you can get that revolutionary energy and revolutionary spirit. That's that trigger point that comes in. But then with the things going on in the 12th house, it's almost like you want to be careful of people like shit talking you that are within your circle. And then how you respond to that as well, because that can create this upheaval within the friend group, within the network, within that kind of stuff. So be very careful about that, especially during a Mercury retrograde. And then let's read the reversal here for the Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde in your 12th. Hidden comms, old ghosts in the DMs. Yeah. And go through what I would say for a Leo rising. Go through like on Instagram, for instance, but you can do this on any platform, on any of your stuff. Actually go into the message requests that you have, the message requests, where like it doesn't even show you the message because they think it may or may not be spam. I think that you could find something good in there. Like there might be something you missed in the message request. So go in there and actually have there been any messages that I've missed? Like check if you've got an email you don't check often, whatever it is, just like it's that whole hidden comms thing. I would really go and check that because that's kind of where you can find that gold specifically, okay? Like that, because that's going to carry over into really what's going on in your first house. It can make you rethink something. It can send you yourself on this new path or get you to initiate something new too. That's really the big thing with that first house, initiating something new. Secrets resurfacing, retreat and rest the mind, a behind the scenes rethink. So that's the thing, is I would really step back, and this is why I said don't react if someone in the friend group is talking shit about you. Just step back, let it play out and see how it restructures the friend group. This is kind of the whole thing. But really, this can also be networks in terms of your business too. This can be your occupation and the networks you deal with in that sense. This isn't just your friend networks either. This is networks in general. So especially if you've got something going on online. But this is a time to take a step back, let the thing come in, and then you can move and structure around that, especially as a fixed sign too. It can be, a little bit stressful, to do something like that. But it will have the good payoff. And then, Jupiter just crossed your rising with Venus. So this is the glow up year for you. This is beginning right now. Spotlight, luck, magnetism land on you. And this is why these things are being restructured. So just extremely important to remember with that. And and then Virgo. And so, hey, what for me, maybe we might, as a bias, go a little bit more in depth with this one, because I am a Virgo rising, so I can speak more on a personal level with it, of course. But Virgo, so Mars-Uranus in the 10th house here, okay? And so this is really, for me, something I've been preparing for my entire year. Just making sure, I think of this as do you have the cup that is ready to be filled with this? Before I even read any of this here, which is going to be based off my predictions, just worded a different way. Oh, cool, Esperanza. You're a progressed Leo sun. Nice. I'm forgetting what my progression is. My sun progression is a Cancer, actually, which kind of makes sense right now. It actually makes a lot of sense. But, so this cup, though, that's being, that you need to have ready to be filled as Uranus for Virgo risings, that is, as Uranus crosses over your midheaven. It's been doing, it's crossed over your midheaven or is about to. It depends on where you fall in it. For me, it's 1 degree from crossing my midheaven. It'll station there on my midheaven, I believe, and then move back. But anyway, this is going to really deal with kind of an upheaval around your career. But then there's also an expansion that can come in. I know expansion is more of a Jupiterian thing, but with how this is sitting in your 10th house, with Uranus having this 11th house thing, this can like expand your networks. But then there always is going to be this disruptive thing that comes in for a Virgo rising. Like, not always, but I'm saying for this particular thing and transit, it's going to be like this disruptive thing, but it will set you on this new path that does extend your networks out. Okay. And so what it says here, the trigger detonates your 10th, career and public reputation, a bold professional move, a sudden pivot, a promotion or exit out of nowhere. Your public life goes electric. People are watching what you do next. And it's very visible right now for the Virgo risings. There's very like a visibility that you may not even fully feel yet, because we are getting that Saturn separating from Neptune. And then this is in the 8th house too. So this is in the stuff that you've been investing in. And it's not seen quite yet, like it's not hidden. So there's interesting play between what's going on and those like the sextile nature of it, especially with Neptune here. But as we really lock this in and we see this kind of crossing back and forth over your ascendant here, that's really, or over your sun even, you're going to have this interesting play here with just Virgo in general on that. So kind of even though we're in this type of energy of reflection, it is a lot more public for the Virgo rising. And depending on your chart, you may or may not like that, because the Mercury retrograde, this is in your 11th house. So you're going to want to like look at the friendships and networks you have, and then any group plans that you have going on, you can expect to see they may like circle back, but then old people that used to be in your wider network may be drawn back to you. And this is, as I said earlier, part of the Mercury retrograde, but a really good thing is that it comes in and there's like a shared goal. This could be a shared goal, or someone that comes back in over a career move that you make. It's someone that you haven't seen, or that used to be, as I said, part of your networks. And then all of a sudden there's this old reconnection. And because of that, this is, it's so funny I bring that up before I even bring up the 12th house, because you are having Venus, which is going to get into what you're attracting to yourself, and then also relationships, that kind of stuff. So it's coming from the unseen, right? It's in that 12th house, coming from the unseen realm. And that can be these old connections that come through that are actually golden for you in expanding your network, your reach, your visibility, your career ascendancy, these kind of things that you're looking at. Venus plus, or Jupiter plus Venus in your 12th blesses the unseen. Rest, retreat, quiet spiritual work, pay off now. So it's funny, like, even though like all of that work, see, because you're dealing with these two planets that are greater, that are the benefics here. So you're dealing with these planets here, and they're in the 12th house. And most people would say they would read it a little bit differently. But what I would say is, because of this play off of the energy, and then you got to remember it's another fire sign, so you got that whole trine going on from Aries there, and there's the unseen stuff that I brought up with that. You got to remember all that work that you did that you may not be as visible or as seen as you want it to be seen. Like, it's actually going to start paying off, and then you get that trajectory, you get that shift in the 10th, in the 11th, and all these things that are going on. And this is over the next few weeks too. And so you have time to really refine and like step back and still kind of do that stuff while still engaging with people and still being in that public scene. So all right, and then for Libra Sun, Libra rising, okay? Mars-Uranus in your 9th house. Great placement. Mercury retrograde in your 10th, but for a Libra rising, that might not really feel like the best placement, okay? Because of the things that have been going on in your 10th house right now, there's been, for Libra, like incredible business opportunity, entrepreneurial opportunity, these kind of things coming through. But now is the time to really reflect on that because of what's going on in your 9th house. So the trigger lights your 9th. Travel, higher learning, publishing, belief, all that kind of stuff. So a worldview cracks open and rebuilds, a sudden trip, a foreign shock, a big picture awakening, adventure calls loud and fast. And so this is also the thing with Libra rising. It's funny, I was giving my friend, she's a Gemini Libra rising, and I was giving her a reading, and this is some of the stuff I touched on just in a general reading I was giving her for her birthday a while back. But around this time, that there would be something that could come up around like traveling for work. or something like that, and that's really one of the things that you could be looking at is like, is work going to allow you to travel? Is this something that you want to do? Or is there even going to be some type of, is work now offering a program that can pay for your schooling? This is another thing that comes in, but there is this interesting play between learning more or traveling or publishing something, a new belief around the work field that comes in. Okay, so that's really, so there will be something that's, it's a trigger for it that really makes you reevaluate or reassess thing, and that's what Mercury is all about: reevaluate, reassess, like all those, the three R's of Mercury retrograde. Things that's going on in career, in your public image, in your reputation even too. So there could be a reputational matter that comes up. Say someone came in and is trying to say things were one way in the workplace, but they're this other way. And then, but also this is a great time to renegotiate, because typically you don't want to sign contracts under a Mercury retrograde, obviously. But the way that it hits you is this weird way where you actually could renegotiate something. Now, I still wouldn't want to put that in paper but if you get this, say, in the next like 2 weeks or something, and it's a longer process of a renegotiation of, whatever this contract is or whatever the agreement is, it's actually kind of a good time. And I would only say this really for Libras, but like you could have a lot on your side, especially in the 11th house here. Jupiter, Venus in your 11th, friends, networks, bring fortune, and your audience grows too. And it's okay if you don't have an audience or something like that, but this could be like your business community that grows. This could be things like that, okay? This could even be what would I say with that? I mean, yeah, with that 11th house, Leo, it's like you become much more visible. It's a lot like the Virgo stuff going on. There's this enhanced visibility, but it should be like a much more positive visibility that you're seeing too. Okay. So a little reevaluation around it that leads into a more positive visibility or an expansion in that visibility. So great chart for the Libra risings and suns. And then for Scorpio, right here, Scorpio sun, Scorpio rising, or if you're like my mom, and you're gonna use this double time because you're a Scorpio rising and sun, double Scorpio. But Mars-Uranus in your 8th, Mercury retrograde in your 9th. So this is going to be firing on the 8th. So it's really going to deal with the shared resources. It's going to deal with, there's even like themes of like death and rebirth that come in. So you've got themes around like, how do I want to reinvent myself around, even like this could be investments too. What are these like new things I want to invest in? With this new thing that comes in, this new trigger point, there may be a call on you to start investing in something else. Like where am I placing my nest eggs, that kind of thing, because it can show an instability in those things right there, whether it is the shared resources, shared money, the debt itself, all that stuff. This can be like credit card debt, even that kind of stuff. That there's going to be something shifting around that. And then other people's resources too, like where you have these shared resources with people, that's going to shift for them, for you. And then but it essentially is transforming a deeper entanglement that is in there, and then these hidden things will surface and actually quite like a forceful way, kind of powerfully, and all that. But because of what's going on in the 9th, this is what needs to happen, because your beliefs are being rethought. There's also like some travel plans that because of this might end up falling through. You can have things like that. And then it's really about just taking a second look at the way that you believe in certain things, the way that you go about life. Very 9th house, and then you had Jupiter just lead there too. So where it may have been kind of adding all of this extra steam of, I always say Jupiter is the planet of too much. Because of that, like there may have been something in this weird case of where have you been delusional about something, because Jupiter's been in that planet. If you don't know when to turn off the spigot of belief with Jupiter coming in, then it's all of a sudden going to be forced turned off, and it's going to really make you see things with some different clarity, okay? And so Jupiter, Venus in your 10th, they crown your career, public spotlight favors you, and reputation rises. So honestly, one of the best things for career here, one of the best placements in here for career, because you got like the good stuff that's not just accenting the career, but it's directly in the career house right here. So this definitely can be a raise that comes in, or a new career opportunity, that kind of stuff. New career opportunity, an expansion in your duties, but then also an expansion in the money that you're making too. Even like new business partnerships, you can have that coming in too. All these things are really on the table, but definitely expect around that 8th house stuff, something abrupt and hidden that's going to really hit where you have these entanglements with other people that especially deal with shared resources, debt, money, that kind of stuff. You even can have it be the occult too. It can be some like huge occult realization. I kind of skipped over the occult earlier, but it can be some huge occult realization that comes through. And that, of course, leads you to reevaluate your beliefs with that Mercury retrograde in your 9th house, which is dealing with your beliefs. So there could be a restructuring around that. And you might even bring that into business too. And then that could be where you get this kind of gilded vibe of the ascendancy in your business there, or in your career. All right, and for Sagittarius, this is going on with the Mars-Uranus that is in your 7th. And then Mercury retrograde is going to be going on in your 8th, okay? And so with this going on, obviously 7th is always going to deal with the relationships, but this even can bring in the business stuff too, especially if you're more of a freelance person, or if you're someone who takes on clients, that kind of thing. There could be some weird thing that comes up and happens around essentially partnerships and contracts. So this even can be something that comes up within a marriage or something like that, but a relationship detonates or ignites, a sudden attraction or split, an open rival surfaces. And I'm kind of a little different on open enemies in the 7th house. I think that's more of a 6th house thing, but you really actually, just because of the way and placement this is, you can have that surfacing through an existing partnership. So technically you could say that would land. The other person is the wild card. Expect the unexpected from whoever you're bound to. And so this is really where it's making you reevaluate these things, because this is also dealing with that 8th house of shared resources. So for a Sagittarius right now, there's this thing that you can expect to see under Mercury retrograde come up, that it's going to really deal with whether it's a backstabbing thing or something to, you find out someone cheats on you, or anything wild, because when you're dealing with these partnerships, contracts, clients, and all that stuff, then that's where the shared resources even comes in. Even with paying clients and all that stuff, you can think of that in a type of way as eighth house and stuff. At least the transfer of money from them to you is very 8th house, if you really think about that in the energy behind it, okay? Because of how you're doing this through the 7th house. And that's a longer conversation to get into, but if you think about that in a certain way, that is so. But any of these cases here, there is this play between the 7th and 8th house is going to happen, because you're going to have to put these things and these streams, whether it's an actual stream of income or these shared resources, under review. Debts and taxes, old debts are going to resurface too. You can have this with old debts. And then an old intimate tie returns for closure. And I would say, which is very difficult for a Sagittarian, for the most part, I would say for most Sagittarians, to have that the old person come back in and all that. But notice with this, like, they're actually coming back in for a type of closure. Like, I would say 9 times, it's going to depend on your chart, but 9 times out of 10, they're actually going to come in for closure. They're not trying to get back with you or anything, which as a Sagittarius, you're probably used to that. They're trying to get back with you. But just kind of be open to the old person coming back in and what they have to say, okay? Because this is something that can help you with whatever is actually going on too. Or this could be what upends, the whole relationship thing too. Maybe this is someone you actually want to be with that comes back in, and that upends your partnership your long-term partnership, your marriage, that kind of thing. So definitely, this is open for interpretation for sure, but these are these major things you can expect around partnerships, contracts, marriages, these things, these long-term relationships, something kind of upending that, and then and it's going to be something that comes out of nowhere, or it's going to be from a person who comes out of nowhere from your past, these kind of things. But with Jupiter, Venus in your ninth, this really is actually meant for your highest good, whatever it is, okay? Because it is in your expansion lane, okay? Ninth house is the house that you rule. Okay, so it's going to hit the self on a big, deeper level too, but there's going to be luck around it. And then I would even say, as a Sagittarius, if you can, if you have the opportunity to travel, but you're not sure about it, go ahead and do that traveling. There's like one I can think of in particular that has these opportunities to travel, but they're not doing it right now, and this would be like the perfect time to seize that opportunity. And especially when these types of things come up, it's kind of like, what do you have to lose at this point? There could be that whole thing of what do you have to lose coming in. You have this travel that you can do. You do love travel for the most part. Sagittarians are going to love travel, coming into new ideas, learning new things, and then, but then also, if you're a Sagittarian who's been working on publishing something too, that's also really cool. And you're going to have a lot of great stuff there for you going on with the whole publishing. And this can even just be something at work, like some type of draft you're typing up, and you can consider that to be publishing. So those kind of things, but very much an expansive energy, a great placement for the Jupiter and Venus there in Leo, and just what's really going to be playing on. And it is for your highest good. That's going to be in terms of what we're looking at going on. It's the highest point in your chart, excuse me, in your chart right now. So very much on the up and up as you just clear out the last of this. I don't even want to say like negativity, but just like hidden stuff, really. All right, in Capricorn. So for Capricorn, sun or rising, you got this going on in your sixth house. The Mars-Uranus conjunction in your sixth house. So that is of your daily work. That is of how you're of service to other people. That's also health, though. It can also just be your daily routine. Mercury retrograde in your seventh. So that's going to be dealing with that same thing, these partnerships. And it can be like work partnerships, contracts, agreements, but then also in your relationship too. These long-term relationships, so like a marriage. You have that kind of stuff going on. But the trigger, this Mars-Uranus conjunction, it's going to shake your sixth house, okay, as we went over the themes for that: work, health, daily routine. A job shifts abruptly, a routine ruptures, the body throws a signal, tech at work fails, fix the system before it breaks you, sudden change in the grind, okay? And this is really dealing with your daily grind too, with how you go about that stuff. There is a disruption that comes into that, and just to shift around it. But Mercury retrograde is going to be in your seventh, so it brings partners and old contracts back to renegotiate. Okay, but don't sign. This is what I said with the Libra as well. Don't sign right now because it's the Mercury retrograde, but be in the process of renegotiating these things, okay? And with the Capricorn full moon, okay, that was in your first house. So this is like a personal culmination that comes in. Okay, and what's so beautiful about it is this will really change your own personal trajectory, the way in which you're going, and all of that. And it's really incredible. Okay, like this is a good one too, because Capricorns, it's interesting. Like Capricorns, I wouldn't even say they've had like a bad last year or a good one. It's just Capricorns are kind of used to this type of momentum, which hasn't necessarily been there for Capricorns. But now you're finding yourself, you're going to be leaning back into this like momentum now that you've been building all these things essentially behind the scenes. These things have been getting built, or like they've been in their infant, it doesn't even have to be behind the scenes, but they've been in their infant stages of you building these things. And now there is a trajectory that it's on, and there is a bit more force behind it. It's gained momentum, and you can see these things take off. But you can be so eager to get back into the momentum that you end up, of course, signing something before you fully negotiated it and taken it in. And so this is where the Mercury retrograde comes in, is you want to be really careful about that, okay? But this is going to be dealing with your first house, with yourself, with your ambition, with your drive, and all these things. So you want to make sure that you do it properly, okay? So really, really important there. And then, of course, you've got this eighth house too. And this is the fun part with it because it's dealing with shared resources, investments, hidden things, even occulted things, and the occult too. You have things of these themes that could really come in and that are going to just be under much better because of all this stuff that we just talked about, going to be much better. And I especially am thinking with the seventh house stuff here. It's like all your shared resources with a significant other or with whether it's like a type of business arrangement, they end up being much better because of this. There's less stress behind those things. There's less, I guess stress is the best word with that stuff. And then it actually assists that other person, that seventh house person, the marriage partnership, business partnership, marriage, whatever it is, all of that, it'll assist them in a much better way. In which like maybe they've been doing that for you as you've been in these infantile stages of setting up new things, and so now you can see a comeback circle, which is important for a Capricorn rising. See a comeback full circle, and then actually kind of be there for them in that same way they were maybe there for you. So really kind of another chart we could look at as like this type of glow up that comes in for Capricorn rising. So Jupiter, Venus in your eighth, expand shared resources, a financial blessing through others, and deeper intimacy. So beautiful chart, great chart right there. And a couple things to really get through. A little maybe I'd say like a couple habits to I wouldn't even say habits to break. I would say that more deals with you had these broken habits in order to build these newer things. And as you see this echo of these habits being able to come back in, which allows you to really channel and tap into your Capricornian self fully, you may be in a bit of a hurry to do it, but take your time. Don't rush in too fast, is what I would say. All right, so for Aquarius, Aquarius sun, Aquarius rising here, okay? So Mars, Uranus is going to be in your fifth house, okay? So, hey, you're an Aquarian. You like the chaos. As much as you can maybe even try to say you don't like it, you like the chaos, okay? And so this isn't really going to be a whole lot different here. So this is happening in your fifth house, which is creativity, romance. This can even be children, and risk. So it's like it's a sudden fling, a viral creative spark, a burst of self-expression. So like all of these things, like very fun fifth house things, okay, that are chaotic in nature, but that is what you thrive on and live on. That's how you channel your Aquarian nature, okay? And it's how you tap into your creativity. It's how you are able to have fun and understand. So the most fun and the most flammable placement of the week. Play with fire carefully. Yeah, and that's so funny too, because it's funny. Like I just put in what I think about these. I have AI add a little bit of stuff from my prior readings and all that. And so, but it's so funny. And now my AI knows me so well. It's pretty much saying the same things I'm saying here before I even get into reading it. So it's really fun. We're having and I have an Aquarian moon too. So this is like what's really funny about this. But not that you would necessarily use the same type of method for this unless you're maybe talking about things going on with your health and your body in terms of the house systems or something like that. But anyway, and then the Mercury retrograde is going on in your sixth house too. So kind of those same themes we were talking about with the Capricorn stuff, but it's going to be more about where are you going to reevaluate this daily grind, or the health stuff too, and all of that. Like all of these things are really coming up, evaluating where your health is at, where are you doing things for other people too, because Aquarians, it's this interesting push and pull Aquarians have with people of like this hermit energy versus like going out and being with the people. There's a push and pull that happens with Aquarians like that. And that's why Aquarians can be misunderstood, because it's supposed to rule the collective, but sometimes you see them wanting to stay away from the collective. It's because of the uniqueness they have around observing the collective in such a way. So they pick and choose where they want to engage with people. But there is going to be something around that being kind of revisited, and this can even be dealing with coworkers too. So we'll read this here. Mercury retrograde in your sixth. The work and health routines reverse. Systems need revisiting. A coworker mix-up brews. Yeah, I'd say yeah. Back up your work and mind the small health signals. Okay, and so that's the thing too. Of course, the work backup is going to be very important to just because of the tech glitches, especially, I mean, if you're an Aquarian, it's you're probably working pretty heavily with tech. I'd be surprised if you weren't, so that's the kind of thing, is just make sure your technology does have that kind of backup going on, which is ironic because even as an Aquarian moon, that's something recently I've done, is kind of create redundancies for a lot of my work and my data and things like that, just in case with new technology coming in, a new technology trigger coming in, that and I'm not even talking about something like what would it be, like a solar flare in a Carrington event or anything crazy like that. Although, the next 10 years, it's on the table. But what I'm saying is I just like to make sure my work is in different areas in case something were to come up, because now I'm past this foundational point and I'm kind of in this Gemini stage of my work, where I'm going, like, I'm kind of getting it out to more people and looking at who I can collaborate with, and all that, and talking about the structural work that I've already done, these kind of things. So Jupiter, Venus in your 7th blesses partnerships. A relationship or contract lane opens with real fortune. And so that it really is the beautiful thing with this, is through you being in this new flow of creativity and of beauty, and of being like one with the chaos, the type of chaos that you actually like that's going on. Through all of that, then you have something that there's this new receptivity and energy that you have that comes in, and then through that you're able to attract something in too that's going to be really good, that's going to have fortune and luck within it. So Aquarius, one of the few signs where there's having to be this reevaluation around or restructuring even around the longer term relationships. It's more like what are you going to see come in for those longer term relationships that is actually going to be lucky. And I think it's the only one in this that's dealing in these signs that's dealing with it. So I mean, really great placements for Aquarius. And Aquarians last year, that you guys have been fucking through it, okay? If you aren't in a mental institution right now, hats off to you. You passed the test, Aquarian, because I'm telling you, Aquarians have been through it in this last year, and especially in a mental way. So now it's like you can find yourself leaning back into that creativity and all that, and then see what is going to come in, whether it's going to be through the work environment, or it's going to be through like an actual long-term partnership kind of thing too. Okay. And usually I'm not associating the 7th house with that long-term partnership kind of vibe of with marriage and stuff, but in terms of like someone coming in who can be like a fun fling or long-term and to a significant other. This is like someone it's very possible for someone to come in that ends up being long-term, because this is happening in the 5th house. So it would be someone that you have chemistry with, and it's because you've gotten back into your own internal chemistry and creativity. So great chart for Aquarius. And now we'll get to the last one here with the Pisces. Mars-Uranus in your 4th, okay? And then Mercury retrograde in your 5th. And so with the Pisces rising in sun, this is the thing you gotta like, what is the volatility that is going to come in around the home environment, and then of course around a type of communication in the home environment too. Okay, so that's really the thing, and it is going to make you rethink romance and creativity and these types of things about whatever it is, and whether it's I mean, ultimately, on a lighter scale, it could just be that you've lost touch with yourself and you need to structure things differently around the home, that kind of daily environment that is your solitude, that is your fortress. There's that kind of thing that could go on, and a revisiting around that. And then how would you do that? This would be through like, okay, well, where am I giving people too much service? What am I allowing my daily grind to look like? And then coming back to this, all of these kind of things that are in play with that. But we'll kind of read this here, and then we'll give a little bit more clarity to what it hones in on. The trigger fires your 4th, home, family, foundations, roots. A sudden move, a family rupture or breakthrough. The ground under you shifts. Restlessness at the base of your life. What you build gets tested. And that's kind of the thing here too, is like there is this testing of with the Pisces energy here, and with sun and rising, there's like a testing around, because it's 4th house, but then it's Cancer as well, which is also dealing with that 4th house type of stuff, the same themes. So it's really about like, how can I fall back in love with say my childhood, or how can I fall, like, you know, because this is the thing, is we all will have these things, and right now especially, but things coming up around our childhood. And are they going to be good memories or bad memories? If they're bad memories that you see surfacing, you know, how do I fall back in love with my childhood? Or if they're good memories, how do I reconnect with that? You know, how do I create a space within myself? How do I create a new space with my family dynamic in which I can reconnect with that version of myself? Okay, so these are the two different ways you can see it just in that kind of track that you see happening. Okay, so what you build what you build on gets tested, and that's really what brings it up here, because your home space is going to be a reflection of your upbringing. Okay, your home space also is that somewhere where you can tap into your creativity, because that's where you can, if you don't have a home space that is in the, especially for a Pisces too, you know, that's got that dreaminess to it that allows you to tap into your creativity, like that's something that you're going to need to really bring up. And then also you can have like a, and so here's the thing, like, sure, when I say old flame, I'm not talking about a person from the past, although, like, I guess that's technically in the cards, like an old I don't even want to say a lover, like an old long-term lover, like maybe if you really felt something for them, sure, but it's more of that, this fifth house energy where someone that you used to have a lot of fun with comes back. So whether it's like a sneaky link, or, you know, like a friend with benefits, that kind of thing, or just someone you always had a crush on, or you both had a mutual crush, but because of other factors, you weren't able to ever get together. Like that a person like that could come back through. Okay, so I'll read this. Mercury retrograde in your fifth, romance and creativity get a rerun. An old flame or shelved project returns. A creative work wants revisiting. Plans with kids reverse. Okay. And that's the thing, is like there's even just the kid aspect too. And maybe that's why you have this reconnecting that you're starting to do with your childhood. Okay. But then this really just deals with kind of a reflection around, like, what was I able to connect to in these ways, which helps me channel this Piscean energy, because this is a big part with Pisces too, in the way they channel their just energy. I won't even start to talk about the adjectives for the energy, you know, like the dreaminess, like all these things. But really just there is this way in which they channel energy where these things are going to be very important to them, especially under these transits. Okay. And there's a trigger that's going to come in around this stuff, which is going to really, like, make you, it'll upend and shift the ground, and it'll make you be like, okay, what was not disrupted during all this, and what's got to go? And then on top of that, how do I beautify this environment and all that and make it part of my daily thing? Because a big part of your refuge as a Pisces from on this axis, you know, that sixth house stuff, because that's on the axis, that's an opposition to you. A big part of you getting through your daily grind and all that is because you have this dreamy space to go back home to, where you're hidden away from people. And some astrologers would even argue that you get 8th house and 12th house themes from just being at home in general, depending on the way in which you participate in being at home, because you're hidden from people, that kind of thing. It just depends, you know. And I'm just saying some people bring that up. But with this 4th house energy, the 4th house is always going to be very related to your 12th house as a Pisces, or just to your sun sign in general. Because of the way in which you go around beautifying your home, making it feel like home, that stuff. There's some 8th house you can throw in there too, the occulted stuff, all of that. But yeah, Jupiter, Venus in your 6th blesses work and health, fortune through the daily grind, and a wellness or job win. And so that's another thing that you can kind of see happening too, is this great fortune in your daily grind and all that. But this whole thing, and also the thing to be aware of is don't be escapist at work, like not dealing with these things that come up, and then things are going so well at work that you kind of just dissociate from it, because Pisces can be very notorious for that. So you don't want to use work to dissociate because of how well things are going to be going through your work and career, especially the daily grind type of work though, and whatever new stuff comes in around how it's structured with your daily grind, or how things are going to look health-wise even. because that's something cool that will come in. Maybe something that was making you nervous about your health comes in, or you reach a fitness goal, and then that has you feeling yourself, feeling good and all that. But just make sure you're not leaning on these things to dissociate from what's going on in the home, because there's a big theme of what is happening in my home right now, and what am I maybe dissociating from in the home. So that gets through all of the readings that we have for the Mercury retrograde in Cancer. And then this is just our watch window, going over it again. So June 29th, we already passed that. That was Mercury stationing retrograde and the full moon in Capricorn. And so this is where we saw the fog roll in, and the institutions are going to start lighting up now. And you've kind of been feeling the fog roll in. And now as we hit this trigger point, this is where we see the institutions start to light up. So that's the trigger here, July 3rd and 4th, which we're on July 3rd today as I'm streaming this. Mars-Uranus exact at 4 degrees Gemini. The shock fires on America's 250th anniversary. This is the moment, okay? Moment of that trigger here. And now, does that mean we're going to see anything crazy? Not necessarily. It's a slower moving planet. It's still going to be in orb for a while. Our watch window really extends until about the 14th to the 16th of July. And this does include the World Cup, so this will be something you see there. But just be on the lookout for whatever you're going to see. And then we get this second peak of energy. I mean, in this rare, I highly doubt it, but I mean, it's possible they're able to keep stuff under wraps just because of the Mercury retrograde, especially because Mercury retrograde in Cancer, that speaks to propaganda in America, propaganda at home, being able to keep people's eye off the ball at home. You can have that. And so it's either a huge story that comes out and it gets like constantly shifting story, and then by the end of it, we actually get a little bit of clarity on the story. You have that, but then also, I would say it could also be we don't find out about it until like July 20th when we get the second peak of the energy, and then all of a sudden. So it really just kind of depends here, okay? But definitely we're in like very, very volatile, extreme energy, probably the most extreme of the year. So get ready for that to leak out into the world in some way, especially as Saturn has separated in such a major way from Neptune. But then, of course, this July 2021st, Jupiter opposite Pluto, trine Neptune, sextile Uranus, okay? The outer planet cross ignites again. And then also, I think I said July 20th. Okay, I might have said June, excuse me. But then also, when we get to the 26th, that's when we have the nodes move in, okay? And so those nodes are going to be aspecting in weird ways. You're going to still have that Jupiter opposition to Pluto. You're going to have the sun in conjunction to Jupiter right there as well. And so that will be essentially opposing Pluto too. But then you're going to have, what that's going to be doing is those are going to be in a T-square, both Pluto and then Jupiter Sun. They're going to be in a T-square with Chiron, okay? And that Chiron in Taurus that we're talking about deals with the resources, especially the resources as a nation. So I anticipate this being really when we run out of the oil, okay, the strategic oil reserve. And it can even be before that, because it could just be when we feel that and the prices start kind of skyrocketing on things because we just don't have the oil available. So it could be that. But just some things to kind of throw out there. The graphics and the way you're laying everything out. Thank you so much, Esperanza. I threw this one together. I'm getting faster at throwing these things together and having them just work out. So I'm happy to hear that because sometimes I felt like my Russia stream, I got the info out there, but it felt a little rough, like I definitely could revisit it, and had been a bit more prepared. But they're coming more together now. But July 23rd here, window closes, Mercury stations, and this is when we get the Mercury stationing direct, okay? Mercury station direct at 16 degrees Cancer. The story stops reversing and the real version surfaces. So what are we really dealing with this month? What story are we going to see come forward in this month here that really is going to be, and remember, we've got this echo of the Mercury retrograde in Pisces. We've got that echo that's going on. And remember how false all the stories were coming out around what was going on in Iran, okay? During that Mercury retrograde in Pisces, okay? And so these things are going to not only be revisited, but then it's going to add to the story. And then the same kind of thing we're going to see come up is where it's very hard to believe what happens, that the story keeps on changing, all of these things. So Definitely look into that. And then these, just to go over a couple of the predictions that I already did. I'll kind of just briefly go over these. But these are just some ideas around in this window, things that we can see as this trigger comes through. So grid and network disruptions. Mars-Uranus's electricity surges infrastructure in Gemini, the data grid itself. Trine Pluto and Aquarius, the collective machine, the most grounded and this is like what my AI would call the most grounded of the predictions. Is like something like this what could happen. And not even the surge is the important part right there, is the surge. So that means like everyone's talking about an event that happened. That could be a surge, you know what I mean? So that's kind of what you're talking about. And this is dealing with both the electricity itself and or the communication across these networks, that kind of thing. Sudden shock, something that's sudden happens, that is shocking, and it comes out of Neptune's fog, okay? The fog of a contested story, okay, that kind of stuff. Mercury retrograde guarantees the first version won't hold. Then we have the disclosure Roswell kind of thread that's going on. Uranus rules the sky and the anomalous, and Roswell cycle gives it a spine. Information surfacing is the best case. A staged event is the spicier read, okay? And so maybe we get another drop that actually has something interesting in it. Who really knows? Because you've got this interregnum synarchy, I call it, happening between the factions of the government right now. It seems like around what's going to be disclosed, but they know there has to be some type of disclosure because of new technology they want to bring in to support energy. This kind of falls in line with where the oil is going at, because why are we doing this thing where it's almost like an intentional getting us off of the oil and onto our own oil kind of thing. This all gets into this whole idea with Greater Israel, then becoming the new hegemony there, and we're kind of doing what doesn't look like a controlled pullout, but essentially pulling out, making what would it be? The American technate, essentially. It's this plan that these tech oligarchs have had for decades now about having a actual tech hegemony over the entire Western hemisphere over here, and having control both North America, South America, all of that right here. And we kind of see that these moves have been made. This is also just in the documents, the war documents the Department of War documents that they physically released, National Defense Strategy for this year, the one that will be coming up for next year. It literally says that this is the plan. And so it can just be even around that kind of stuff, okay? Is that like we have something that comes out that really just allows us to utilize certain technologies and be able to say where they came from in terms of all of that restructuring to having, I guess, a stronghold in North America. And I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it or don't agree with it or anything, but this is just what you can see the elites are planning on doing and the things that are moving behind the scenes. Money in motion, volatility, and system transition anchored to the July 20th, 21st Jupiter-Pluto swing. Pluto in Aquarius is the rewiring of money rails. Not a crash call, a shift. Okay, and I'm happy it added not a crash call, because I was going to be like, I'm not saying it's a crash or anything, but you can kind of see some things coming in. But obviously the major placement for that is around early October for money stuff, as you get that Venus and Mercury retrograde. It'll be our next Mercury retrograde. But of course, I'm noticing by Mercury retrograde by retrograde, there's something that gets seeded in that retrograde and gets revisited on the next retrograde. So what are we going to see getting seeded around the rails, the money rails? And I love calling it the money rails because, it was the money, it was literally the rails, the railroad stuff, but also the currency wars in Neptune and Aries that we had, okay? And then we're back in Neptune and Aries again, and then we see this kind of coming up, looming under the surface with BRICS and other stuff like that, but also with the petrodollar itself and what's happening with the petroleum, these currency wars that are coming back in place, and these rails, and they even call it rails, on railing, and like it's onboarding, off bailing, but then like the on rails, off rails is another term that I've heard for crypto itself. So all these things kind of play in here, and we'll see what gets seeded during this time on that. And then just smaller ones. I don't even know if I'll read all of these, but just kind of keep a lookout for aviation or aerospace incidents. You know, because that can bridge into disclosure. Tech AI rupture, a breakthrough in technology, a breakthrough in AI, quantum, even. They were talking about quantum recently. A shocking fall because you have that Jupiter opposition. So this is what I call death of a king. Energy, so resignation, exit, or exposure of something major. This could even be Epstein stuff that exposes new people, that kind of stuff. I mean, you're getting Trump and Vance are being heavily aspected with this Jupiter transit that's coming through on their, it's coming through their ascendant. Now, Trump is going to be a little later than Vance, but still. Leak declassification. So there could be Mercury retrograde in Cancer plus Neptune plus Pluto, records and buried documents surfacing. And this kind of plays in with what I was just saying too, with like maybe Epstein stuff, you know, manages to come out, or there's even just like a mass leak of that data dump. Civil unrest. And so, yeah, the Tower card, Esperanza, I feel you on that. It is really feeling like a Tower card moment for sure. Like I would almost, like you could argue with the Tower card, and I don't know which planet it's necessarily or sign it's supposed to represent or anything, but I would almost say, like, would the Tower card not be like a Mars-Uranus conjunction incarnate, right? Like that, when I think of moments where I've had the Tower card, where I've had the Tower moments in my life, it's like these Mars-Uranus conjunction moments. But civil unrest, sudden uprising or flashpoint with Capricorn Full Moon striking institutions, clash at a high profile event. And so this is kind of where the 250th anniversary comes in, that kind of stuff, all of that. So definitely worth considering and just being ready for, and knowing what to engage in, what to not engage in. So, you know, and then energy shocks. And this is the Neptune and Aries, okay? Sextile with Mars-Uranus, and then you've also got that trine that goes up over. This is that mini grand trine we've been talking about. The what would it be called? Like the, I guess Trinity Trigger is what I'm calling when it comes in, but this is dealing with the Trinity of convergence. So this can be the price spike, natural jolt, and it's funny because I'm reading these for the first time. Like obviously it's based off of my prior work, but this is all the stuff I just went over, you know, and the astrology behind it. So definitely there's something to watch out for here. The only thing with Uranus is you never really know, and it tends to be the last thing you're thinking of. So I cast a wide net here to try to cover what it might be, but even I might be off. The only thing you can be sure of with Uranus-Mars conjunction is some type of disruption. So as it says here, a cluster, not a calendar. None of these are guarantees. The chart shows a loaded window and the kind of energy moving through it. Sudden, electric, veiled, amplified. And then, so this is more of the menu, okay? And the sky will really show us, and the stars will show us what comes in. Oh, and then this last thing here is just the chart itself. When we are exact, this is when we have it exact. And so this is actually going to be in a couple hours here, where we have this 4th of July conjunction exact. Now it'll be going into tomorrow, okay, the 4th of July and everything. But it is technically for most of the U.S. exact, or I'd say like half of the U.S. actually exact tonight. So, like, but for, you know, the Midwest and the East Coast, you know, pretty much all the way up over until once you get to Mountain Zone, then it's, you know, where you have it kind of close. But this is where you get that exact. But these are the placements you got here: Mars-Uranus conjunction, Sun and Mercury retrograde in Cancer, Jupiter over here having just moved into Leo. They are still in the 1st degree, okay? And the amplifier switches on at its very first degree, as it says with Jupiter in Leo, Jupiter. And then Venus is also in Leo here too, but keep in mind that Venus will be moving into Virgo pretty soon here. So Venus Virgo is always an interesting one for me as a Virgo rising. And then you've got, of course, that mini grand trine between Neptune, Pluto, but another interesting thing here is that you're going to have the moon at 29 degrees Aquarius at the anaretic degree, but then you're going to have still that 0 degree North Node Pisces. So it's interesting. It's like North Node Pisces over here kind of giving us a last little something something. When you're just looking at the exact time, because obviously the moon's going to move into Pisces fairly quickly after this. But if you just take this snapshot and say do a horror reading off of it, it's like whatever we see from this trigger point that comes in, it's really going to be of this new energy of the Aquarian energy through that moon being at the anaretic degree with Pluto in there. We also saw a moon Pluto conjunction was when they dropped the Roswell files too. Very interesting. So you have that, but then it's also in this last leg of the North Node in Pisces of kind of the things coming in are really meant for us, you know, and trusting in the process, trusting in the direction things are heading, even though it may be disruptive. So but that's going to do it for me tonight here. Let's move myself back down here. And I hope you guys, we'll actually switch. Oh, yeah, and if you want a reading or anything, nightslight.co, go ahead and book a reading. And then I'm on Linktree/nightslight with all my platforms if you want to follow me on Rumble. I didn't even have the time to stream to Rumble today. But, you know, maybe I'll upload it later or something like that. I just I have to set up a whole thing for it. But yeah, feel free, find me on all the stuff there. If you really want me to go deeper into the houses, because I got this Sun-Pluto opposition, so I fixate on something and I go pretty deep on it, and that's really what you can expect from one of my readings. But yeah, that does it. I hope you enjoyed it, and then I will switch back here and just wish everyone adieu. But no, really with this energy, it's the whole thing. I hope the takeaway isn't scary. Okay. It's just like, maybe if you're a mutable sign, it's less scary, you know, especially the mutable rising, or even like cardinal. I think for the fixed signs, it can be a little hard to hear that the change is going to come in. But really it's for a lot of the change coming in here. It's like, if it's major change, that's very difficult and not really a whole lot of silver lining to it. Although I think I gave a silver lining for everything. You've probably been coasting good for a while now. Okay. And it's kind of time for that readjustment. Or if you've been really building and readjusting a lot of things, this is where you're seeing kind of, it's this equilibrium point that we're hitting here through the disruption, an equilibrium point. So if it's been like nice and good and calm and peaceful for a while and not very disruptive, like you're going to see needing to shift and change things if it's, and then vice versa. So just those are the kind of things to expect, and wider window. We gave what the window is on this, all that. So I don't want it to sound like this is going to happen tomorrow or something, but just kind of be on the lookout and make sure you're staying grounded through all of this. Obviously you don't want to ground too much. We are in the air fire energy. You want to be ready and zipping around and all that stuff, but there is some level of groundedness in order to access a lot of air and fire energy that we're in, that needs to be had, or you can literally just go insane or crash out. But that's the air or fire energy. You can either crash out on people and blow up on them, or you can like mentally just not be able to handle it and go a little crazy, you know. But we like a little crazy on this channel, just not too crazy. But no, I hope everyone has a great 4th of July and lots of fireworks and everything. Funny thing too with fireworks, I bet you're going to see, because of the drone stuff, because of Pluto and Aquarius now and all this, you're going to see a bigger crackdown this year on illegal fireworks. You're going to see more fires started this year. With all this air fire energy, more fires started from illegal fireworks this year, and more of a crackdown on it, and being able to track people down and people showing up and doing all that. Like, I think you're going to totally see that this year. But have a great 4th of July. Pop many illegal fireworks. I know I'll be doing that, okay? Fuck the police, right? But no, I actually do respect our law enforcement officers. But I'm going to be popping off a lot of illegal fireworks. But you guys take it easy. Thank you for watching Night's Light Astrology. I hope you enjoyed your reading, and have a good one.